Good afternoon, and welcome back. It is Podcone, the Falcone podcast, and today we're talking about Halo. The name is wrong again. I really cannot get that right, but oh well. I'll fix that in just a moment. Let's introduce the guests. Toby, let me think about this. The prophet of regret to my prophet of truth.
The Cortana to my Master Chief? No?
How are you doing today, Toby?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk. I feel like everyone's so professional. They're all like professional Halo fans, professional Halo players, and I'm just like, I like it. So I feel like I'm here as a little bit of flavoring to the otherwise perfect dish.
But you're a big Halo fan yourself, right?
I like it. I'm a fan. I'm into it, yeah.
Good. Well, that's what I want to hear. And I knew I'd get the cameras around the wrong way as well. Oh, well, it's work in progress. We're fixing this. But next up, the former pro player of the roster. You know what I'm talking about. Harry, how's it going?
He's talking about someone else, I think. I don't think he's talking about me at all.
I cannot wait to talk to you a little bit more about what it's like to be a Halo pro player, because, like, I mean, we've talked about it casually in the past, but I'm just fascinated by it.
Yeah, no, it should be pretty good. There's a lot of there's a wide variety of what we can talk about later on throughout the whole course of the show. You know, multiplayer from me. I'm gonna hear a lot from the single player and the campaign from you guys, because I almost 99% don't have a clue. So it's going to be a learning front for me, absolutely 100%. But no, apart from that, yeah, excited to be here.
The only Halo pro player in the history of Halo pro players that's never touched a campaign. But I'm hoping that is going to change soon. Harry, as well, is a good friend of mine. We've worked several esportsy events together in the past. I'm just glad to have a chance to catch up with you as well. Last but not least, we have very heavily endorsed by so many other people. I was a bit of a loss to who to get for my fourth person on today. And on Twitter, people were going mad. They're like, Kexman, you want Kexman. He is the man with the Halo. He does a World of Warcraft podcast, but he never talks about World of Warcraft. He talks about Halo. Kexman, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
No worries. Thank you for inviting me on. It's not often I get a chance to talk Halo. The guys over at Warcraft Radio are sick to death of me talking about Halo, so a chance to actually talk to people that, you know, kind of talk my language is it's a blessing. I'm really, really excited to sort of get my thoughts of Halo Infinite and see what you folks think as well.
Excellent. Well, just a little reminder, you could be watching in a variety of different ways right now. We are live on Twitch, Wednesday, 3:30 p.m. British summertime, twitch.tv/Falcone hosts. The podcast is every week, every Wednesday at that time. So if you're watching on demand, feel free to tune in live next time. If you are watching live and you miss any of it, you can watch on demand after on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, any of the podcasty places. But if you're watching live, I'm now going to let you know I have unlocked the channel point reward for Ask a Question on the podcast. If you've got those channel points going spare and you've got anything you'd like to ask myself or any of the guests, then take advantage and do that. But let's get straight into the main topic of the podcast. The Xbox Showcase was last week, and Halo Infinite, we finally saw gameplay. It feels like it's been a long time coming. Halo 5 came out, what is it, like 2015? 2016?
Yeah,
2015.
Yeah.
I think we're actually in. We've now waited longer between 5 and Infinite than we did between 3 and 4. That's kind of how long
3 and 4, and we even had Reach in between 3 and 4, right?
Exactly. So it's a long old time coming.
Has this been the longest period of time without a Halo game since Halo came out?
Without
Wars 2, right?
Without a mainstream Halo game, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it was always about 3 or 4 years on average. Normally about 3 years on average. It depends on the circumstances of the games back in the day. But this has definitely been the longest by, not a mile, but by an extra couple of years at least. So, you know, we knew it was going to be something special considering how much time and effort 343 have actually put into this Halo Infinite.
Well, we know it was, I think the reason why it's been so long as well is because they've obviously built the Slipspace engine, which is the game engine Infinite's running on. I think what a lot of people didn't realize is that Halo 5 was technically still running on the exact same engine the original Halo was running on. It's just heavily modified. So the fact that they've now turned around and they've created an engine from the ground up means that Infinite, you know, it's a very specialized engine for this game specifically. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's funny when you compare Halo to Call of Duty, right? Because like Toby, you said, is this the longest we've had between Halo games? I think we've had Halo Spartan Assault, Halo Wars 2, and there's the arcadey one as well that you've played.
Fireteam Raven.
Yeah, right. And what did you think of that?
It's Fireteam Raven is strangely enough, I got a chance to play it in November. I went to BlizzCon and the whole team was going, where should we go? I went, Dave and Buster's. We're going to Dave and Buster's because they've got a Halo Fireteam Raven cabinet there. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's good fun. It is a lot of fun. I mean, it's obviously not very, 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 very specific. It's not really heavily story based, but it's a good shooter. They introduce some enemies that are not in the games, but are technically in the files because they were kind of cut from the final games.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to see those in a quote unquote canon game, I suppose.
It's like Time Crisis, but with Halo weapons, essentially,
Yeah.
right? And Halo enemies.
The cabinet's really cool. They've got one in London. In the there's like a gaming arcade down by the London Eye. That I'm forgetting the name of, but in there they've got the cabinet, and the cabinet is like this big Halo ring kind of thing, goes back behind you. It feels kind of like you're sitting in a ghost, I think, if memory serves well. And yeah, it's just one of those classic arcade games, but it's all Halo.
But yeah, the last mainstream Halo title was Halo 5 Guardians, which came out, you guys said 2015. That's a really long time ago. When you compare it to a franchise like Call of Duty, where you have a new game every year without fail. In fact, I think they've got two different developers making there's like two different Call of Duty series coming out alternating years. So one comes out every year. It's been a while for Halo. Do we think that, and I think this is quite an obvious answer to this, do we think that's a good thing?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think the more time you spend on a game, then the more chances are that it's going to be more enjoyable. There's going to be more thought process into everything in creating the maps, the campaign itself, the storyline. There's a lot that actually goes into it. I do not know at all how on earth they create a game almost every single year. The fact that one of you said that there could be two developers, I can completely understand that, because if it's just one, I don't know how they did it every year. That's why you kind of got a mixed bag, really. There were some Call of Duty games where they were quite good, and then some said they were quite bad. That's why there's a bit of a mixture of what people liked and disliked, really. So to have now Halo Infinite, where it's been 5 years in the making, new engine, like mentioned earlier, Ben, there's not really much reason for it and not really much excuse for it not to be bad. But, it's one of those things where we'll have to see, won't we?
We will see. 5 years. Kexman, you were talking a little bit about the Slipspace engine. Do you know what engine the previous Halo games were on? Just like
for the light, I can't remember exactly which engine it was on. I'm pretty sure it was one that was built up by Bungie themselves. I think the one thing to kind of remember most, that should be sort of like known is everyone obviously talks about Halo 2. Everyone obviously talks about Halo 3 being these fantastic games. Reach was obviously really well received. The actual story behind these games, when it comes to the sort of like the level of input into the games, the development cycle and everything like that. The development cycle for all of these games was absolute hell for Bungie. They were an incredibly fragmented, they're an incredibly fragmented team realistically through that, and they somehow managed to come together to create these incredible games. And then, obviously for 343 to then pick that up and try and make something of it going into Halo 4 and Halo 5. Some people really, really enjoyed those games. Some people didn't. But yeah, the original engine was something that it was originally supposed to be an RTS that they then turned into a first-person shooter. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the engine wasn't the most probably the most streamlined for Halo.
Okay. Well, let's talk Halo 5 for a minute. I want to get opinions on Halo 5 and the recent years of Halo straight away. I'll start with you, Harry, in this sort of with your competitive scope. What did you think of Halo 5's multiplayer?
At first, I wasn't too sure because, don't get me wrong, back then they had a pro team. They have 2 pro teams now. They have at least 8 to 10 players there, or ex-pro players, working on Halo Infinite to make it the best it can be on launch, especially for the competitive side. They also had 4 amazing players, ex-pro players, again, for Halo 5. And they made it the best it can be. We weren't really too comfortable about sprint and the clamber. And there's other bits of it, like the radar as well. Even though the radar had a very small radius, the problem was the fact that it was still there. You couldn't really make there's certain plays you couldn't make, like there's certain flanks you couldn't make. There were certain routes and routes you could take, which you couldn't take anymore because of the radar. And it was a little bit of a nuisance sometimes. And even I remember at the start of Halo 5, like the AR was so overpowered, but you didn't even need to use your pistol or BR or anything.
Right.
The AR was that good. It was ridiculous. But at the start, I think it was okay, but it got better and better as time went on, especially in the competitive scene. After a certain period of time, they made the changes which were necessary, like they nerfed the AR, they got rid of the radar. There's a lot of little things here. Well, not removed the radar, but they made changes to it, which made it so you could make those game-changing individual plays, which normally someone would make if they've got a huge killer instinct or really good game sense to make an approach on their opponent. But I felt like after a long period of time, like in 2017, started getting bigger. It was getting bigger and bigger as time went on.
Yeah.
But of course, it dropped off at the end of 2018 because by then MCC was getting redone on PC and there was lots of other bits and pieces here and there. It was kind of a bit of an off season, but a very long off season. But it's weird. Funny now, there's actually still a huge community now for Halo 5, especially in North America and Europe, where they're actually going back to Halo 5. And the community right now is still split. Like we still got an MCC community where they prefer classic Halo, and we've got the other side, which is of course the modern Halo. But people need to understand that like people want sprint, people don't want sprint. But we've had sprint now for like over 10 years. We've had it longer than the classic play. And I've always said if Halo Infinite has the classic feel to the game, but with the modern abilities like the clam and the sprint and the slide, then, you know, we should be fine. But, you know, back to the answer with Halo 5, I think it was fine. I thought it was a good game. I enjoyed it. Over a period of time, it did get a little bit stale, but nonetheless, it was a top-class game, nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I personally also really enjoyed Halo 5, the multiplayer. All that really puts me off of playing it nowadays is that I don't like playing on controller anymore. I'm very much a mouse and keyboard player. And there is Halo 5 Forge that you can play on. And I actually had a go at that yesterday, but it doesn't feel right. And I couldn't put my finger on it. But like, Halo 3 feels good to play on mouse and keyboard. Halo 5 Forge does not. And I feel like there's probably just some extra work that's gone into the port of the MCC that didn't go. Because I like Halo 5, and something just was not gelling with me when I tried it yesterday.
Yeah, it's. I think it's one of those. I mean, first things first. 343 Halo 5 into MCC when, I think, is the first question.
Yeah.
But you know, the multiplayer was. I really enjoyed the multiplayer when it first came out. I thought Warzone was fantastic. Really, really enjoyed Warzone. Felt like something that was, you know, it kind of fit really well into the into kind of like the story with Halo, with the war game scenario. So I did really enjoy Warzone. I suppose the bigger question, I think, is the Halo 5 campaign. Now, I can already see Toby grimacing.
That was going to be the next question I was going to ask you about. And
I can
again,
already see him grimacing slightly.
we're going to talk in alien language to Harry right now because.
Oh yes, I'm already alienated already.
But what was wrong with Halo 5's campaign then, Kexman?
So there's two things in my eyes that are wrong with Halo 5's campaign. The first thing is there is a definite sense that somewhere along the line they changed the storyline. It seems as though everything was hinted at it being a return of the Didact that we saw in Halo 4, and something somewhere along the line got changed, and all of a sudden it was somebody different. The second thing I think that was probably kind of even worse than changing the storyline was they seem to run out of ideas very quickly. You know, the first time you face off against the Warden Eternal, it's a fantastic fight, and then you do it again 7 more times, and by the 5th you're just like, oh my god, it just gets far too much. So you know, when you talk about actually the way it's, you know, some of the set pieces, the way the actual, the way the game feels is really good. I'm a bit, you know, I like sprint. I love some of the Spartan smashes, those sort of abilities. But the story, there was definitely something quite wrong. And it does feel as though it kind of got cut halfway through development and then tied up with someone else's idea.
Now, I actually thought the gameplay was pretty good in Halo 5's campaign. I thought it felt good as well. A lot of people disagree with that, though. A lot of the like major Halo fans would say that with Halo 4 and Halo 5, actually, because of all of the sort of long-range weapons, the light rifle, the DMR, the BR having better, tighter range, etc., a lot of people are arguing that it encourages, whereas the sort of Halo 1, 2, and 3, you can run through and you burst them down with your assault rifle, your BR, there's not really any range, so you can really get in with these close-range scenarios. Halo 5 was much more of a cover shooter. It's much more like, you know, sit back, snipe at, especially in the higher difficulties, snipe at a distance, and then only push forwards sort of when things are dead, and that is sort of a change in pace. Toby, I think you only played Halo 5 once, is that right?
Yeah, and I gotta say, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I think with the story, there was this sense of way too much going on, in that you've got this kind of like, okay, we're going to see the end of the Covenant War, that's going to be good, and we're going to go to San Helios, and there's going to be all of these book characters and all these side characters and all these, you need to know what happened in Spec Ops, even though they changed the relationship a little bit. There's this weird bit where Halsey's had her arm shot off.
Yeah.
She's Spartan Ops, but she doesn't care anymore. And there's and we're going to have this Warden Eternal character who's going to be this prolific character who's there all the time, and then Cortana's going to come back, and everything, there's just everything, and we're gonna have Master Chief. Is he bad? Is he good? Is Spartan Locke hunting him down? And he's gonna team up with Buck from ODST, and it's like, whoa, slow down. I think I just want to be a dude in armor and like save the galaxy, and that chill. I think in terms of where Halo had come from, I jumped on in the Halo 3 days. I was really enjoying the first Halo Wars ODST Reach when it came out. I was all part of that hype cycle. And Halo 4, 343, taking the reins, it was kind of like a big responsibility. And Halo 4 came out, and people went, yeah, okay. It was kind of very mid-tier, like, oh, I think this is good. It's very gritty, but maybe this is the direction Halo's going now.
A lot of people will say that they thought Halo 4's story was the best in all of the games, and they will like die on that.
Yeah.
Yes. People love that story.
Oh, interesting.
I
definitely need to play it
100%
again.
agree with that.
Yeah.
Kexman, you think Halo 4 is the best story?
Go,
Yeah.
tell us.
Wait, Nathan, why are you agreeing? You don't know anything about Halo.
I know, you'd think so, but it's weird because I heard so many people go, Halo 4 multiplayer was awful, but the campaign was the best. And I was like, what?
It switched to Halo 5. The campaign in Halo 5 was like, yeah, okay, passable. And the multiplayer was miles ahead of what 4 had. And then 4 was like, the multiplayer was absolute trash tier, but the campaign is probably the best campaign they've done. And I think a number of that is because 343 did a really, really good job. And I know that there are a lot of complaints about people turning around and saying, oh, you have to read the books to know who the didact is and who the librarian is. And technically, yes, that is true to an extent. But if you kind of, if you look at what 343 did, not only did they do a real good job of advancing Master Chief character.
Yeah.
The first 3 games, he's kind of a very, stoic, he just kind of does what he's told to do. Whereas in Halo 4, he's kind of his own person. There's obviously that very, very, very famous scene on Infinite where Del Rio tells him to give
me that AI!
Give me back my AI!
So good.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and
good.
it's just that very, very simple, no, sir. And it's the first time you hear Chief actually...
As a character.
Yeah.
With autonomy and...
He disregards orders. And that then ties in with Cortana as well. There's a fantastic story with Cortana kind of dealing with her rampancy, kind of realizing that this is something that is going to happen regardless, but she still also has something where she needs to protect Chief at the same time. And it is just a fantastic story because it builds on those characters while also giving us a bigger look at the universe. And then it then ties everything in with the ending, which is on so many different levels a phenomenal ending, because you obviously get that very, very emotional final scene with Chief and Cortana. You get the scene which to me is the better one between Lasky and Chief on the Infinite when they're looking out onto Earth. And then you get the final scene with the speech from the didact talking about how the Forerunners have tended over the galaxy and all of a sudden the humans are trying to take over, and he's kind of saying, well, why must this happen? And then the symbolic removal of Chief's armor at the end of it. And it kind of ties in with the 343 story where they've said Halo 4 was about removing the armor from Chief, making Chief more human. Halo Infinite is going to now be about putting the armor back on Chief and, kind of bringing him back up to this kind of legendary status.
I think I remember, and you said about a change of story. I remember when Halo 4 was coming out, they were talking about, we want to do a trilogy, and there was this idea of a Reclaimer trilogy.
That's
or
right,
some
I remember
kind of,
that too, yeah.
This was going to be the 3-story act, and I think you're right. 4 was like, there's some really good here, and there's some maybes here, and okay, sure. And then there was suddenly this kind of 2-year to 3-year period, maybe, where MCC, which was the most ambitious idea all these games together. They didn't need to do that. They could have just played it safe and done a Halo 2 remaster, and the cutscenes are gorgeous, but they decided to go for it. And it had issues on launch, it had issues with connectivity, it had all kinds of problems.
A lot of issues.
But, 343, they've come along, they've ruined, they've ruined, the Halo that Bungie made. And then Halo 5 comes out, and it's such a departure from even 4, and it's such a, where's the story going? And now there's been this big gap. And is this gap a good thing? Yeah, because I think they know that Infinite counts. It's a pivotal moment. They've saved the MCC, and now it's the future of Halo is really all on this game.
Hence
this
the 5-year break, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've even been saying, YouTubers that have been in meetings and stuff have been saying that the game was going to come out sooner, but because they had to rework the story due to negative fan criticism from Halo 5, the game got delayed. But yeah, I mean, so that's good with Halo 4, there's bad with Halo 4, but now with Halo Infinite, we're completely forgetting about the end of Halo 5 by the looks of things. They're going to have to... Halo 5 is still canon, but not as relevant anymore. And I'm very interested in how they're going to do that.
We don't know quite to what level. We know that this takes place about 3 years after the end of Halo 5. The end of Halo 5 takes place at 2558. We know we've had it confirmed this takes place in 2661. So there's like a 3-year gap there, which is very, very confusing. Is it 2061 or 60? It's one of the two. And it's going to be quite... It's going to be interesting to see how they kind of turn and flip it. They've said that Infinite is going to be the last mainline Halo game for a while, because the reason why they've named it Infinite is because they're going to then use this game as a basis for expansions almost going forward, which actually makes me quite excited, because this means that this doesn't necessarily have to be a storyline of, Halo 5, Cortana takes over, Halo Infinite, we take on Cortana and defeat her. This one could almost be like, this could start off with us having almost like a side quest, taking on this section of the Banished Army on Zeta Halo, which is exciting enough in its own, just saying the term Zeta Halo. But yeah, fighting off this armed force of the Banished here. And then the next expansion could be dealing with the Created. Yeah, maybe dealing with the Return of the Flood.
Maybe the original story is just the Banished. Maybe then at the end of the original story, the Flood somehow get unleashed, and then there's a big expansion a year in or 2 years in where you deal with the Flood. Then maybe there's a later big expansion where Cortana's back at Zeta Halo for whatever reason, and now we're dealing with Prometheans, and maybe they do build it in like a step-by-step thing.
And that would work, because I think the great thing about DLCs and expansions is it requires that you've probably played the base game to some degree, to some level. And so those more complex and wrapped up plot threads from 5 can start to be unraveled and played out, I think, rather than throwing people in at the deep end and saying, here's all the characters from 5. It's just like, okay, so, here's the Arbiter expansion. Now we're going to get the resolution to that story. Here's the Halsey expansion. We'll get a resolution to that. Prometheans, Diadac's plot.
Sounds very Destiny.
Yeah. The open world as well?
So, sort of, yeah. We'll in fact, yeah, let's jump into open world now, because that's a big change. And personally, I'm not a big open world games fan. I feel like ODST was fine because it's sort of open-ish, but not like too... It's not too bad. It's not like you can utterly get lost in side quests and stuff. But like, as soon as you bring up a game like The Witcher or Skyrim, I go, I don't know what I meant to do, and it puts me off of playing.
It's far too big. You don't know where to go first.
So this open world, and they haven't used the words 343 have not used the words open world. In fact, it's like they've been very careful not to use the words open world. I'm hoping that it's more like a... so let's take the sorry about this, Harry. Gonna go deep into campaign for a second. Let's take the Silent Cartographer, right? One of the levels from Halo 1, the one where you're on the island. I'm hoping that when it looks like it's open, it's more like that. It's like a larger than the Silent Cartographer. You've got your mission. Maybe there's a couple of side quests on the mission, but then at the end of the mission, you go back to maybe a hub world. That would be okay. And then you go into your next mission, which is like the second level in Halo. Another big expansive area.
That mission
Yeah.
was actually, I can't remember, like, I know it's halfway through Halo 1 anyway.
Yeah.
You are right, though. It looks very, very similar. And I think a lot of YouTubers as well, like during the Infinite gameplay, you could tell that Pilot and with Master Chief, their relationship has evolved to some extent. And they had a feeling that it's probably halfway through the campaign itself.
Yeah.
That's the assumptions a lot of people made. And there was such a huge amount of evidence that kind of helps that, to some extent. It just shows that, like, even with the open world thing, that kind of does shout like Battle Royale as well, just due to the fact that, there's so much different things that can actually help with that. And if they didn't have a Battle Royale with it, then
Battle Royale mode?
with open world campaign, it kind of sprinkles, some ingredients that it could be a possibility.
Imagine a Battle Royale world where you've got the whole of a Halo ring and it's just boom.
They have already said, the only BR they are
Is the
interested
battle
in
rifle,
is the
yeah.
battle
But that
rifle.
was quite a few years ago.
I said to everyone, I said, if there was ever a game that should have a battle royale that features players dropping from the sky, it's Halo, where there is a literal section, where there's a literal group of the army
ODST.
that drops from the sky.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite a few years ago.
Mombasa, oh.
Yes,
That was
New Mombasa Battle Royale.
Give
it to me.
That was quite a few years ago that they said that about battle rifles, though. So, like, you never know what's changed in that time. Like, I could see it being a game mode in it, maybe, or maybe a future edition.
They've said. Sorry, go ahead.
You go on. You're the guest.
Thank you. I was going to say they have. I think it was I can't remember who the interview was with. It might have been with Alana Pierce, where they said that the open world stuff starts about 7 hours into the campaign. And so I don't know whether that was an official thing or whether that was just like it starts about 7 hours into the campaign. Did any of you guys take a look at the actual like the screenshot when they zoom out to the map? Did you guys actually see what was on that map?
There's like an upgrades tab. There's a difficulty thing, although people seem to be saying that that's still determined in the main menu, so it's not really clear why that's there. And some sort of collectible icon.
But the two things that interest me is, number one, you can actually go and you can sort of like look at all the various different things, all the icons. There's one that's called Golf Base, which seems to be some form of like rest stop where you can maybe pick up ammo or something like that. There's another one where it was obviously one of the diamond target things, but there was a name above it that read very, very similar to an elite name. And there are some people that are speculating we are going to see some form of like Shadow of Mordor style enemy system where you can target certain captains and generals of this banished army. Some survive and go up stronger, something along those lines, which if they do implement that, I would be very, very excited to see that in an open world scenario. Okay.
Right. I want to move on and talk about graphics, because graphics is something that has been very divisive amongst the community. It's the biggest thing people are complaining about. And I'm not the kind of gamer that plays the game and my gut reaction is, oh, look at the graphics. And I want to say that my first impression was, wow, this looks like Halo. That was my gut reaction. It looks like Halo 3, but like in a good way. It looked like a more detailed Halo 3. Toby, you said earlier that sort of 4 or 5 even reached to a extent, got very sort of gritty and military. Whereas to me, this feels like classic Halo.
There's that feeling of, I think, and a lot of games of that era and that time did in general, where it's you try and push for realism, and then somewhere along the way you go, oh, hang on, that was our identity. That's what we look. That's what people remember and want. And I think it's always a smart move to focus in and exaggerate on those things. I think Master Chief looks great, and I think there are elements of the world that look really nice, and then there are other elements that I'm not sold on. Like looking at the Warthog, and I think we disagreed a little bit, Dan. Like looking at it, I still felt that kind of Halo 4 grittiness. I felt like I don't know what it was. I felt
like it was sort of bright enough, colorful enough to kind of. But I want to quickly jump to Harry on this for a very specific point, which is simplicity in multiplayer. Because for me, obviously, I've been playing the Master Chief Collection games, so they've come out again on PC. And when I played Halo 2 Anniversary, My biggest complaint with the multiplayer was actually I can't see what's going on. There's so many particle effects. There's so many explosions. Like I cannot get any sort of real competitive vibe here. So you've obviously been big into all of the multiplayer games. Is there something to that? Do you think maybe stepping it down into a more simple aesthetic helps the competitive scene?
Well, it's quite funny, Toby talking about Halo 4 because it uses the Halo 4 engine. So, you can't actually get away from that game for the life of you. But yeah, I don't think there was really too much to say about it. Yeah, okay, with the particles, the textures and the color. The colors was fine. It was more the textures, really. It was so highly intensive, like with the water on Shrine. Like if you lost a sniper rockets like from far away, like you wouldn't see it unless someone called out. But okay, there's a sniper's been dropped on bonfire, or rockets are dropped underneath carbine. You wouldn't see it unless someone actually called out, or you just by accident like walked over it. But it wasn't really too bad anyway. I think from a high tier level, I think it's perfectly fine. Like, you don't really have to worry about that. But if you're playing multiplayer casually, like in Social Slayer or anything like that, unless you're on death screen and you've seen another player on your team on death screen drop the sniper or rockets or sword, etc., then yeah, you probably wouldn't see it. But on other maps, it's normally fine. Like on Lockdown, it's fine. I think there was only 3 competitive maps. Was it? It was Lockdown, there was Shrine, and I was trying to think Warlord. That was it. Warlord was so green, it was just ridiculous. Sometimes you couldn't tell with some of the colors apart, but it depends on the contrast of your game as well with how high or low the colors are. But you need the brightness quite high anyway, so you can see certain parts of the map. Same with Halo 2 Classic with the same map. But yeah, I don't think it was too much of an issue from a competitive standpoint. But from a casual standpoint, I completely understand. It can be a little bit of a nuisance, shall we say?
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Kexman? What do you think of what's your sort of gut take on the visuals of the game?
I liked it. Obviously, I think I think this was a demo that was probably prepared about 2-3 months ago. So they're probably 2 or 3 months ahead of schedule. There's a lot of people complaining about the lighting, a lot of people complaining about certain aspects of that, which we know for a fact that lighting and shadows are realistically some of the last things that are put into a game.
Have you all seen the meme of the Brute?
Craig.
Oh, yes.
Craig the Brute.
To the point where now, if you search on Google the word Craig, he is the first image that
He's
comes
not.
Up. He is. I swear if you do it, I swear that is exactly what happened. You type in Craig, he's the first thing that comes up.
That's ridiculous. I thought you were joking when you said that.
No.
Do you know, I'm going to have to look as well now.
No, actually
Google image search. Everyone watching right now, listening to the podcast, Google image search Craig.
Just the word Craig.
It's the first thing that comes up.
Yeah, he's the first thing that comes up. It's crazy.
Actually, the first 3 images are just from there straight away.
Yeah.
That is absurd.
The third one's like fan art of Craig as well. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I hope that this is incorporated into the lore somewhere, and that somewhere in here there's now a document about the Brute called Craig. Somewhere that's gonna be a thing,
or like as a nameplate or something with his face, just to play multiplayer or something.
The Halo Reddit have been going crazy, making various Craig memes. It's been fantastic. So you mentioned the lore thing. There actually is. Not for him specifically, but a lot of people are turning around and saying, "Well, why do they look so different to the Halo 2 brutes and the Halo 3 brutes and all this sort of, why aren't they hairy?" The actual reason for that is because there are 2 different species of brutes. There's almost 2 families of brutes.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact names of them off the top of my head. One of them is considered to be like the very hairy sort of like, the standard brute we know from Halo 2. The second one is the one that mostly makes up the Banished Forces. It's the one that Atriox is part of the family of. So yeah, that's the reason why they're hairless in Halo Infinite.
Is the Brute at the end of the trailer? Is that that's not Atriox?
No,
that is not Atriox.
What's his name?
Okay.
Escharum, that's right.
Escharum. He's a brand new brute.
I felt graphically I wasn't excited about that. And I also, and I know it's obviously this is an in-engine cutscene that we're watching. Halo 2 Anniversary's cinematic cutscenes are still to this day so much better than almost every game I've ever played.
Yeah.
And I think for this being the showcase, it certainly would have been nice to have seen it maybe transition into that.
But the reason that they have a reason for not doing that, right? And
Sure.
that is that if you watch the showcase demo, the camera doesn't cut once. It moves around. They're doing the God of War thing, where, and apparently, if I've heard this correctly, I think with the whole game, the camera doesn't cut during cutscenes. I think it's one of those, it's immersion techniques, right?
Okay.
I don't know.
It's ridiculous, I think.
Yeah, that is something they could probably do. It'd be a really, really good, like, artistic style. I think that with Escharum at the end, there's definitely some issues with, it looks like they've gone motion capture, because we know that Darren DePaul does the voice of Escharum, obviously Reinhardt from Overwatch.
Yeah.
And it seems as though the motion capture isn't quite there, because if you notice, his eye, like the top half of his head doesn't move at all. So I feel as though there's still a little bit of work to be made there, and they've probably still got another 3 months to add stuff in as well. There are certain aspects that I'm not a fan of. I would like to see a slightly more texture on some of the weapons, which I'm sure we will see further down the road. And there was a couple of issues with sort of like stuff clipping and stuff disappearing.
What people have said a lot is that the footage from the 1 minute gameplay trailer, it looks far better than the footage from the for 7
That
minutes.
was exactly what I was going to bring up. Like, you've got to remember that Xbox Showcase was probably in 720 or 1080p, depending on the circumstances.
That's true
for a
as well.
stream, it's natural. Like, it's understandable that. Not saying there's going to be issues, but you're not going to get the best quality. Let's be real. But yeah, what you were going to say, Dan. Yeah, there's a 4K trailer. That 1 minute trailer. Not only was it just a 1 minute trailer with 4K footage, there was other weapons in there. There was the Halo 2 BR in there. There was the sword in there as well. Yeah, even when I saw the sword, I was like, oh, why didn't I see this in the actual gameplay? So I started watching the trailer more than I actually did the gameplay.
It's a good
crazy,
trailer.
but
it's a good trailer.
exactly.
Really
And if it's that graphically intensive, I think with a game which is open world, it needs to have. Okay, I understand that there's some people where they care more about graphics, there's some people who care more about the gameplay, and I think they've kind of brought both into one, really, and you kind of got that classic vibe anyway. There's sometimes in the gameplay during the campaign where I felt like I got some CE vibes, like with the pistol or MK50 sidekick, as it's probably called now, I'm not really too sure, and you saw there's some Halo 3 animation in there as well with the modern abilities from Halo 5, so they're trying to wrap everything into one, but people need to, even with some of the positive and negative feedback, people need to stop being so, what's the phrase? Probably just so judgmental, because we've only seen a slice of what we could get, and there's a huge amount to come still, I'm sure.
We'll get properly into gameplay last, but yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you're saying. There were shadows missing, sure, but the game's not out yet. This is a very early showing, and personally, I'm very excited by this new visual style, because the style is something that I know a lot of Halo fans have been upset about the most since 4 and 5. Halo Wars 2, people were very happy with the visual style. It's like, yeah, this is Halo. And now it looks like with Halo Infinite, I almost said Halo 6 then, with Halo Infinite, it looks like they're going back to that old style. And to me, that's very exciting. And I would rather have a game that looks maybe even a little bit worse than Halo 5 if it looks properly like Halo. Like, give me a really modern Halo 3 looking game. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's really, really exciting. I think the biggest takeaway for me is, I mean, I think the elites look fantastic again. Halo 4 and 5 wasn't fantastic. The elites look phenomenal. The old grunts back with the proper over the face methane masks are fantastic. But the number one takeaway for me is Chief looks like a tank. He looks how he should look.
He is henge. He's been to the gym like quite a bit over the last 3 years.
It's the best that I think he's looked in a Halo game ever.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Which is why it's our wallpapers, right, Toby?
Yes, our phone wallpaper right now is literally that image of him on the thing. And I think it's been exciting pretty much since that first yeah, there you go. That's all.
He's even got it on his phone.
Oh, you got it as well.
Pretty much since that trailer dropped, where it was the kind of Halo Infinite announcement, and you just see the helmet down by his side, and it's like, yeah, they know what we want.
Yeah, it looks so good.
Right, Harry brought up the sidekick, the new pistol, and this is, again, just before we get into gameplay, this is the next controversy that I want to tackle, because I have a pretty strong opinion about this, and I want to see where you guys stand. So we saw a bunch of new weapons. We saw the Ravager, which kind of looks like a spiker at first, but it like shoots a burst of almost.
It's like a magnum. It looks like.
Oh, that's the Mangler. So there was the Mangler, which was the one that kind of looks like the Mauler, but it's more like a really strong long range magnum. And then there was the Ravager was the one that looks like the Spiker, but it shoots like a burst of concussion rifle shot type things.
Yeah.
They also introduced the new, what's it called? Not the one that's like the DMR but shoots really quickly. Commando. Is that it?
Oh yeah, the Commando, the VK7 or something like that. Yeah. I love the look of that gun.
There was the Sidekick, which may be the replacement to the pistol, and there was the Bulldog shotgun, which may be a replacement to a shotgun. Oh, and the Pulse carbine as well. So these are like kind of the new weapons that we've been shown, and people are saying, "Oh yeah, sure, okay, I guess I can understand the Pulse carbine, but this had better not be replacing the carbine or the storm rifle or the plasma rifle." And other people are saying, this Bulldog looks okay. It could be a shotgun variant, but it better not be replacing my shotgun. And I want to know where you guys stand on that.
I think there's been kind of like rumors and slight hints in interviews that they're not replacing them so much as they are going to be the more common variant of. So I think the one thing that I've seen is that in the open world, you will come across sort of like the Bulldog shotgun quite often. Rarely you will come across the OG shotgun that will kind of act as almost like a power weapon variant. It's same with the original. We'll have the Sidekick, our new sidearm, but you can also find rarely the OG Magnum that will act as a power weapon. So they're not going away per se. It's just more they're kind of changing the way that the weapons are going to work.
What do you think, Harry? Coming from the sort of multiplayer point of view. I mean, Halo 5 did the thing with Warzone, which I'm guessing you didn't really play much of, where
I played that quite a lot.
Oh, you did. Well, obviously, well, as you'll know, a lot of the weapons and vehicles had loads of different variants. There were the sort of ghosts that were more powerful, and the battle rifles with different scopes, different this, different that. But then in sort of core competitive multiplayer, it's stripped back and it was just the basics. What do you think of this idea of there being multiple shotguns, multiple this, multiple that?
I don't think it's too much of a bad thing, but just like be careful of how things will work. Like, for example, you had going back to the shotgun earlier, which Kexman was talking about. It's funny, Halo 1 shotgun, you could literally snipe people with it. On Halo 2,
yeah, Halo 1 shotgun was absurd.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Like if you run around that on longest, and you'll be having a field day. On Halo 2, it was like you have to be super mega close, like the Mauler in Halo 3. But long as the weapons have a low kill time, that's what's very important, especially with the competitive side of things. Because I am very curious about what you guys think on the campaign side of things and the single player as well. Because from our perspective, we want like low kill times as low as possible, but not so much that it kind of ruins the game. But we want all the weapons to kind of counteract each other. Yep. For example, like with Halo 1, you would spawn with the AR and the pistol if you used a generic start. But the thing is, with the pistol, it's 3 shots. So if someone snipes you or tries to rocket you, maybe by the time the rocket the animation comes towards you, you can 3 or 4 shot them. And then you can see what I mean. There's a balance in weapons where every single one of them, it's like chess really. Each part kind of counteracts each other in some way. But obviously that's my multiplayer side of things. Yeah. It's obviously completely different. But I don't know what it's like with you guys, with all of you in terms of the campaign, because you might see a different side of it where you prefer the animation, the look, or the feel, or how it plays against other people in single player.
Go on then.
I was just going to say, just jumping in the multiplayer for a second. I think Halo 5's weapons were actually balanced very well. Obviously, when you take into account the assault rifle change and everything, there were few weapons, and they all served a purpose. I loved the new bolt shot being this little burst weapon that sort of did that and had the little home in. And then there was the suppressor, which acted a little bit differently. I felt like they did great work at sort of separating all of the weapons. Even the pulse grenade, is that what it was called in Halo 5? I don't remember. No, it was pulse and 4. It was like the
something like that. Yeah,
but you know what I mean. Like, in Halo 5, suddenly it's actually killing people, and it's actually good. And I felt like the sort of weapon sandbox in the sort of base game was good. My concern is, and campaign, do whatever you want with campaign. My concern is I don't want them to ruin that. I don't want in multiplayer to be walking up towards a weapon and it's like, I don't know whether it's a storm rifle or a carbine or a pulse carbine, because they're all in the game. It could be any of them. That's what I don't want. I would rather there was a limited amount of weapons that did their own thing, So yeah, okay, there's the pulse carbine, there's the plasma pistol, there's the needler, Put the classic weapons in, but like I don't want a commando and a DMR and a battle rifle and another one and another one and another one that it could be any that's what I don't like about Call of Duty. I don't like there being thousands of weapon variants. I don't care what's what. Just give me a gun. Whereas Halo, I like that we've got an assault rifle and a battle rifle and a shotgun and a rocket launcher. I'm worried that with too many weapons, again, I'm talking specifically about multiplayer. I'm worried about there being too many weapons and taking away from that. So for me, if the Bulldog shotgun's the shotgun, I'm okay with that. I don't need two UNSC shotguns. It's a shotgun. That's my view.
Yeah, but I don't want to take the skill away too much. I think with Halo 5 at the start, there was a lot of tweaking. It was like I mentioned earlier. With the ranking system, it goes bronze, silver, gold, etc. And then you've got the top 200, which is champion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think at the start of the season, like when the game first came out, the AR was abused so much. But 343 took a little bit of time to kind of like nerf it a little bit here and there, but eventually when it was nerfed enough, more people started using the pistol close range rather than the actual AR. But this is what they need to do again anyway. Like by then, Halo 5, I think all the weapons were balanced. I think it was perfectly fine. I think 5-shot with a pistol was enough. And I think it got to a point where when you're at an offline tournament, like everyone was between 5 and 7 shotting people. And it got to a point where, you don't want the kill times to be too quick, because then when it comes with the teamwork and coordination, it doesn't really exist too much, because you don't really need enough damage dealt to, against your opponent to then push him for the flag or the oddball, etc. But I think they did a pretty good job. Like they could have done it a little bit quicker, but at least they fixed it momentarily. And I'm pretty sure now that they've got a much bigger team, they've worked on it for a long time now. And even they're not going to fix everything. Let's be honest. There is going to be a few kinks in the armor here and there. But I'm sure that if they need to rectify anything in terms of multiplayer or the campaign, then they will do it much quicker than they did before.
Yeah. So how about Toby and Kexman? Talk to me about sort of the style of the weapons, the campaign. Like, where do you stand on this weapon sandbox thing?
So in the new trailer, there's like 4 new weapons, and there's the grapple hook thing that looks pretty cool as a way of combat, and I'm excited to try them all out. But I will admit, one of the things that I think makes Halo so accessible is you got a handgun, and there's the alien version of a handgun. There's the assault rifle and the alien version of the assault rifle. There's a precision weapon and an alien version of a precision weapon. And then occasionally, they've each got a sniper, they've each got a close range weapon, shotgun, sword. And occasionally there's something in there like the brute shot that's super identifiable to jazz it up. But it's like, I know what a brute shot is. It's the gun with the big knife attached to it,
Or a Spartan laser, right?
Right. Or a Spartan laser. You know exactly what that thing does. And it's simple. And that's accessible. That's really accessible. I think Halo 4 came out, and suddenly all of the guns that existed, now we're going to have a Promethean version of a shotgun, which was like the bolt thing with I've forgotten what it's called.
The bolt shot?
Shielding? Oh, I can't remember.
No, I think it was...
sorry, you mean the scatter shot. Right. Yeah.
I mean the scatter shot. I was thinking about a different gun, but there's a scatter shot and the light rifle and the binary rifle. The binary rifle was kind of cool because it was a power weapon that had its own specific gimmick. And I don't like this idea of there being different degrees of shotgun or different degrees of
That's what bothers me.
Rifle.
That's what bothers me.
I think, and it bothers me. It bothers me just in that when I'm fighting an enemy and I see they're holding a shotgun or a sniper, I know exactly what to expect. I know exactly, that's what that weapon does. I know what I'm facing, and because it's also iconic and identifiable. Yeah, I'm rambling now. Go ahead. I want to. Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily. I think in the campaign, I think it would be acceptable because you can imagine there being this array of weapons on a Halo that has kind of had the banished forces on there. We know the UNSC have been on there for quite a while. We don't quite know exactly why the hell it's cracked open, but we do know that it is. We know that there's been forces on that ring for quite a while. Multiplayer, I think, completely correct. Yes, it should be. It should be a case of you have your handgun, your assault rifle, your BR, your sniper, your rocket launcher, and your power weapon, and then you should have the other variant of that. At least in your traditional sort of like Slayer maps, capture the flag, your pro stuff. If you have an option where you have something similar to Warzone, where you can kind of loosen those restrictions a little bit, fine. But for your standard multiplayer, it should remain almost like that, very, very standardized. These are the weapons you have. You know exactly what to expect. There's no way that you're going to turn around and go, okay, well, I don't know whether he's got a shotgun, whether he's got the classic shotgun, does he have a mauler, is it, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think keeping kind of almost having a little bit of a gap between sort of stuff that you can do on campaign and the standard multiplayer is a good idea. It means that you can go a little bit, further with your multiplayer, with your campaign sort of weapons, and then have, and then really tightly hone your multiplayer weapons. So, like it was said, the time to kill is still quick, but not ridiculously quick that you don't have time to react, or not ridiculously slow that it takes forever to kill anybody.
Yeah. I just people are saying like, this bulldog, that's not not my shotgun. Like, give me my shotgun as well. And my point of view is like, I don't know, like, I only want one UNSC shotgun. I don't even mind there being a Covenant version, the sword, and then a brute version, say banished version, the hammer, and even at a push, I don't mind there then being a Promethean version, the scatter shot. But don't give me I get those, they're different enough, but I don't want another UNSC variant. To me, that's a little bit too much.
I know, I mean, as we saw on the map, you've got the upgrades tab and the collectibles tab, and we know that there was a place called Golf Base.
Just keep that to campaign, please. Please keep that.
Yeah, exactly.
I do like this idea, and you mentioned in campaign about the idea of like a classic weapon showing up as a power weapon, and I do think there's something very exciting about, maybe being partway through the campaign and suddenly you're being given the classic pistol, and it's like, oh, this is such a rewarding moment because I know what this is because I played with it before.
I'm saying all of this.
But then the moment you get the classic pistol, the campaign's over. Because
See, I'm saying all of this though, and I want to then add that like, the way Halo 5 did it, I think is quite cool. Like, they added the Halo 2 BR at one point, and like, that's pretty cool. They added the Halo CE Magnum, and it looks and sounds like the Halo CE, and they added the old style rocket launcher, because obviously Halo 5 had the different rocket launcher, and they added the other rocket launcher back, and that's cool. But then the flip side is there's so many pistols in Halo 5 now. There's so many that. If I now jump on after several years of not really playing it a lot, I don't know what's what. I don't know what's more powerful than what, or what I should be using, and that's what I'm hoping to avoid.
The funny, you mentioned the weapons. This is me going deep lore nerd here. The interesting thing is that the pistol actually has a symbol on it that isn't recognizable. So it's a brand new company that has made the weapon. All of the weapons from Halo through to Halo 5 were all made by a company out of Mars. This weapon is not. This pistol is not. So it kind of makes sense that we're getting some new versions of stuff, because let's not forget, at the end of Halo 5, the Cortana and the Created pretty much wiped out most of the Sol system with the EMP. We don't know what's going on there. So it's entirely possible the reason we're seeing different weapons like the Bulldog shotgun is because A, easier to make, and B, it's quicker for them to make when it comes to resupplying the army quicker.
Right, we're going to talk about one final thing now. That's gameplay. Gameplay. The most important thing I would have thought about Halo. Harry, first impressions on Halo Infinite's gameplay.
I think it was about a minute or two through the campaign, I got the CE vibes, like I mentioned earlier, with the pistol and the Halo 3 animations, like I also mentioned earlier. And there was a little added bits and pieces where it wasn't really, too modern. I felt like it kind of pleased both the classic and the modern community. It got the classic feel, you got the vibes from it. It kind of felt all into place, and that was just for a campaign mission. And of course, I know a lot of the multiplayer people are thinking, oh, the grapple hook this, grapple hook back, and all the other bits and pieces. But they were happy with it too, because of the fact that with Halo 5, you could slide for quite a while. Not a long time, but for like at least a second. And it's quite hard to actually kill some of your opponents sometimes. But even then, it was only a small slide. Doesn't give you too much an advantage. Even the sprint as well. The sprint wasn't really a huge detriment in any way. Like, I think before, like you'd feel like you're running 20% faster than normal walking speed or running speed or anything like that. It kind of felt like it was 5 or 10%, which isn't really a huge difference, but not also a kind of way to, affect the game too much where it can, affect the style of play, like which some of the players may have. But I feel like in terms of like how everything was, I thought it was great. I know there's probably some bits in there with the force field and all that bits and pieces. I was looking at it and thinking, I don't think that's going to be a multiplayer. But if it is, then I'd love to see how on earth they'll try and fit it in somehow, some way. But it was more just the open world. As soon as I saw the map just appear, I was like, it screams battle royale, even with the graphics. Like, okay, it's not like crazy graphics, but you've got to remember, look at Fortnite, look at Valorant, look at some of the other games. They've been very successful with the different style of graphics. But
Valorant has very
there's
simple
a lot
graphics.
more. Exactly, and it's only just been released recently. Even Fortnite, it's only a few years old now, but even still, it's still making a massive impact in the esports scene, and especially in the market as well. But going back to Halo Infinite, I think I was pleased, but I just felt like I was left wanting much more.
Okay.
Especially, I think it might be different for us. Like, for example, for me, it was like, I just want to see the multiplayer now. Just give me the multiplayer.
Yeah, me
like,
too, me too.
Don't mess around. I just want to see exactly
That's
what
what
else
was
there
so
is.
annoying about
And
the
for you
Escher bit at
guys-
the end, because it's like, I don't want to
Yeah.
hear Escher. I want to see more gameplay.
Yeah, and for you guys, it's like, I want to see what's the next mission and what the rest of the storyline is. Like, what happened before and what happened after. We were all left wanting more, no matter if it's from a campaign or multiplayer perspective. And I think that was the go-to they were looking for. But I'm sure next month, maybe at Gamescom or maybe at like another Xbox showcase, possibly, I'm sure we'll find out much more than what we're bargaining for.
Yeah, I really hope so. I mean, the key things gameplay-wise that we did get confirmed, I mentioned this briefly at the start, as you said, there's sprint, and as you said, there's slide, there's clamber, and there's hit markers on weapons and grenades. How do you feel about those two things, Harry? Clamber and hit markers.
I wasn't really too sure about hit markers. I don't know if there was a hit marker only when you shoot the opponent, or
There
if
was
the opponent actually dies. Or
in the gameplay demo, there was actually, yeah, I think it was in the demo. He sticks a brute with the spike grenade, and there is a hit marker at the impact of the stick.
I'm hoping that it's just because he was stuck. I'm hoping that.
Oh, really? The only
100%.
real problem is frag grenade hit markers, right? Well, that's
Yeah,
one of the
yeah,
major
like-
ones.
I think it was both really. Like, for example, like if you wanted to throw a nade at a precise location, then if there's no hit markers, then you'll just make the assumption that they're not there, and then you can just go elsewhere. But that person who you hit can easily come behind you. But if there is hit markers, then as soon as they throw that nade, they're going to know exactly where they're positioned. They're just going to go straight towards him and finish him off. And I think that takes a lot out of the individual skill in Halo. And I think it first came into play in Halo 4 or H2A. I can't remember which would come to mind. But when we had that, that was just horrendous. It just made the game, not as good in terms of like, it's about awareness as well, about where your opponents could be. If you just if it's just a symmetrical map and you just throw a nade in one place, like on Carbine side, for example, and they get hit, it's like, oh, right, is there. Like, guys, let's go clean up, and they're getting the broom out and just cleaning up the frags left, right, and center. It's pretty balmy, but, it's not as bad as when Halo 4, like, in the multiplayer, you couldn't de-scope your opponent. So they could still be scoped in even whilst being shot back. It was pretty balmy, but these fixes did come into play. But hit markers is still a big question mark for me. We'll have to...
How about clamber?
Clamber, I don't mind, actually. I've kind of been accustomed to clamber now. It's kind of like a bit of a forte now. It's kind of the casual thing you're used to. It's like sprint. Like, we're kind of used to it now. We've had clamber, sprint, and we've had sprint for like, 10 years now at least. We've had clamber for like 5. It's we've become accustomed to it now. We're used to it. It's part of our... It's built in game, really. We're kind of used to how it all works and how it all feels. It's not just like, oh, clamber, and we're kind of like trying to get used to how it works and what we should do with it. We've had clamber for so long now. I'm pretty sure it's just part of the normal coup de grace now.
Okay.
But no, I'm perfectly fine with clamber.
Generally pretty good. All right, Toby, what do you think?
I liked it. One of the most fun things and one of the things I said about it that looked the most fun was just, doesn't it look like there's so many ways you could approach any given combat situation? And you look at these brutes, right? And there's the shields are going up, and there's boxes over here, and there's ledges over there, and I'm just like, I get the impression that if I were to play this campaign multiple times over, I'm not going to play it the same way any 2 times. I'll have preferred methods and stuff, and to me that is part of the fun and the charm of Halo. We were doing this morning. We were doing that mission, the Storm, right? And we were taking on the Scarab in Halo 3, and you had your preferred way of doing it. Knocking down its leg, bringing it down. I have my preferred way of doing it, which is jumping off of the cranes at the top of the level. And I think having the ability to traverse any environment in any way, and kind of, as long as the physics engines is consistent, it's going to be a lot of fun. And seeing things like the grappling, seeing things like the clambering, I was definitely excited. Seeing them like pull a fusion coil and throwing the fusion coil at the enemy, that's awesome. Who doesn't want to do that? And I just think we've been given some really cool tools. To
I think
pick
it's a
up
shame that in the
this, uh,
demo it doesn't actually kill the enemy he throws the fusion. I feel like that would have made it, right? It's just a bit unfortunate that it didn't.
But there's
Yeah.
also, as he runs past a fusion coil, there's also the press RB to pick up fusion coil.
Yeah.
So you could be running towards a group of enemies, pick up this fusion coil, yeet it into the middle of them, and then pick off all the stragglers. Who doesn't want that?
Dude, my
Yeah,
favorite thing is that brutes can throw grunts at you. Like that's
Yeah.
Yes.
Or that they
Yes.
stumble. I mean, when you shoot the legs, they stumble.
When they're
That's
raging.
fun. That's
Yeah.
so fun.
It's fantastic. I think the gameplay that we saw it wasn't quite as quick as we've seen, but it was quick enough to keep you interested, and you could kind of, Chief was just wading through them like an armored tank, which is, I'm hoping that there is a little bit more speed put into it. I felt the grappling hook was a little bit slower than I like it, but again, we know there are upgrades, so that's going to be a chance. And again, the fact that this has been confirmed as taking place on Zeta Halo means that we just have so much more to look forward to. I don't even know how to explain that.
Now, I believe that it's been confirmed that the grapple hook in campaign is always going to be, you're always going to have it. There's a cooldown, but you're always going to have it, and other equipment you can pick up. But in multiplayer, I believe the grapple hook itself is an equipment pickup. It seems that we're going back to the Halo 3 style of, bubble shields and power drains, except we've got drop walls and we've got grapple shots. Grapple shots, that was called, right? The grapple shot. What are you, Lethal, are you happy that we're returning to equipment pickups, or did you prefer armor abilities?
Me personally, I didn't like either, in all fairness. I felt like with like the regen in Halo 3, it just annoys me that I'll get into a BR fight with someone, they use regen. It's like, well, I was winning that fight and now you're just going to regen. Power drainer, it was okay to a certain extent, and the bubble shield kind of worked as a regen in some ways. But, if someone had sword or shotgun or anything like that, or they were just absolutely ridiculous with the snipe, no scoping if they come through the bubble, then, it's very disadvantageous to the person who's winning that fight or winning that bout. The armor abilities on Reach, I think that kind of destroyed Reach multiplayer and put it like down to its grave pretty much.
Armor lock, come on.
The armor lock is like
armor lock.
The armor lock looked so cool. It looks incredible, but in multiplayer, it did not need to be there. But it did take out in competitive play. But in the social play, it was fine. For if anyone who played casually, you can have fun with the sprint or the armor lock or anything like that. And to be fair, grapple hook, it could find its way into competitive multiplayer, but it definitely will be in casual 100%. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know if you guys ever played Apex. It kind of gave me that Pathfinder kind of feel.
Okay.
In terms of at least grappling to like your, to certain areas of the map. It could be a great tool. For example, if you're like the person, if all three of your teammates are alive and you've just spawned, it's a great way to kind of catch up to your teammates instead of sprints. There's probably numerous ways to kind of like make use of the grapple hook. Like look at Quake Champions. There's also a champion in Quake called Athena, where her main focus is the grapple hook, and she's executed really well. And normally only the top players can actually control her to such a high extent. So I'm thinking it could be possible. Maybe it could be a permanent use of multiplayer, or maybe they'll just take it out like just completely. But it's not. I don't think it's too bad as an item pickup. It doesn't give like a worse player an advantage or anything like that. If anything, it should help in some way the person who's actually the better player.
Right. I wanna sum up everyone's thoughts finally in a number. I want you to give me a number between 1 and 10. How excited are you, based on the showcase last week, for Halo Infinite? Kexman, let's start with you.
I could be really smarmy and go 7 because that's Bungie's number, but I won't. I will probably, I don't know. I'll probably give it an 8, just because I think there's a lot of potential there. I mean, obviously, again, there's still some stuff that they need to get sorted, which I have complete faith in them in doing. If they manage to nail that, I honestly believe it will be a fantastic sort of like jumping off point for the future of Halo if they do decide to kind of keep this as the basis of the next sort of like 10 years of mainline here at Halo games.
So an 8 from Kexman. All right.
I'd say an 8, yeah.
Harry?
Oh, I don't know. Do you know? It's a really hard question.
You've
really,
not even
because
seen
as you understand-
multiplayer yet, so I know
I
it's
know
hard for you.
exactly, but I think I've seen enough in terms of like the weaponry in his arsenal, which was used, and all the other bits and pieces. I'm gonna give it a 7.5 because I'm still not sure yet. Like, I think it looked great. Like, I think there's a difference between watching the footage and actually physically playing the
Yeah.
footage. Like, I don't really care about like what's there, what's not there, what should be used, what not should be used. I'm more about just enjoying the game. As long as I have that feeling of enjoying the game, I don't care if it's sprint or if it's got a classic feel or anything like that. As long as it feels Halo-esque in some way. Like, don't get me wrong, if I find out Battle Royale comes out, that number 7.5 will already change to a 10 or
Really,
something like
that's the
Could you
difference.
imagine-
You see, a lot of people
Well,
in the internet nowadays
yeah.
are like, "Oh, the last thing I want is another battle royale." But I'm kind of with you. Like, I'd love to have a go at a Halo, as long as it's
Yeah.
not at the detriment of the other gameplay.
Exactly. Don't get me wrong. Battle Royale is slowly becoming an oversaturated market, but this is Halo we're talking about. It's not just a random game created out of nowhere. It'll be a side thing for them. Either it comes out with launch or it comes out in the future, or maybe they not even have it at all. That's another question. But it would be huge. And so many influencers and streamers and YouTubers, etc., would be all over that. And it's gonna be it'll make it so good for the player base.
All right, Toby, give me a number.
I'm gonna give you a 9, and my reasoning for a 9 is that I'm not a Halo super duper mega fan. I love Halo, I love the lore, I love the world, but I don't need it to be super mega perfect. Like, I don't have these incredibly high expectations. Since Halo 4 and Halo 5, this is like the best looking Halo since like Halo 3, Halo Reach. Yeah, I'm more excited about this than I have in the last few games. Yeah, it's a 9 out of 10. Of course, there's stuff in there that I'm like, but there's plenty of time for that to improve. Yeah, 9 out of 10.
My number is 11 out of 10 because
Whoa.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to
Breaking.
you. I'm not gonna lie to you. All right, fine, 10. I've watched the demo more times now than I would like to admit.
Yeah.
I honestly,
I've done the same.
I've probably watched it around
Is it-
16 or 17 times now. The full
Is it
gameplay
too
demo.
late to change my number to infinite?
Oh, all right. Final thing. We've had a couple questions come in from Twitch chat using channel points. We'll get through these quickly, but we've got Matty Hond has asked, "Do you guys like Minecraft?"
Honestly, no. I don't understand the appeal.
I'm gonna say the same as Kexman, but the thing is, though, it's like I've played it a little bit. It's probably something where I could just chill and mellow and just get away from everything. But to be fair, I've not really had that feeling that much, so it's all right. It's okay.
Toby?
Not really for me.
No, nor me. Okay, cool. Let's move on.
That one was easy.
Next question, final question is Jay asks, favorite weapon in Halo and why? This is a good one.
Ooh.
I can probably say whilst you two,
Yeah,
or
no,
you
jump
three rather,
in.
have a bit of a thought. CE pistol, quickest kill time in the game. Love it.
CE pistol, right?
Halo 2 energy sword feels really good.
Yeah.
It does. That's true.
Although even the pistol in ODST, because you just like grunt heads just pop, 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 pop.
especially if you've got the grunt birthday skull.
Yeah, that's a really good combo.
I'm trying to think. There's a couple I can think of. The original Halo 2 carbine, I loved. I love the original Halo 2 carbine. Obviously, a massive. I'm a big fan of the Halo 4 assault rifle because that thing just sounded and looked meaty. But I'd probably go and say I'm a big fan of the Halo 3 brute shot. I think the brute shot is a phenomenal weapon. I love that thing.
I find this really hard. Like, there's so many things I could say, so I'm gonna give you a lore one, which is the Needler.
Okay.
I just think the Needler, just generally, is a very cool weapon, very
It's cool.
unique. At least back when it came out, it was super unique. And I feel like a Halo game is not a Halo game without the Needler. Like I've heard people saying, "Oh, don't take away my DMR. It's a classic Halo weapon." I don't know if I'd quite consider the DMR a classic. Like, it's been half the games. For me, the classic weapons are like the plasma pistol, the Needler, assault rifle, battle rifle, shotgun, rocket launcher, and I think the energy sword also counts. It's not in C, it's not in ODST, but like energy sword totally counts. They're sort of classic Halo weapons.
I think the thing with the Needler is as well is you see how powerful it is in the game, but if you read the novels, you actually find out just how gruesome that thing is. Because when you think about what that weapon does, and what it can do to the human body. I think there's Halo Ghosts of Onyx, where one of the Spartan 3s, one of the trainees, he gets caught across the side of his chest with a bunch of needles. And by the time he gets back to the platoon, his ribs are showing. Like the needle is nasty.
But the weapon I'm actually going to say is in terms of gameplay. I'm cheating a little bit and saying too. It probably won't be my favorite weapon tomorrow. I change my mind about this regularly, but I've been saying this a lot to friends recently. Low key, my favorite weapon that I've been using in Halo 3 multiplayer over the last couple of weeks is actually the plasma rifle, which is a bit of an off the wall answer, I think. But it's just the way that in Halo 3 and I think in 2 as well, it just saps your shield like that. Like it's very functionally similar to the plasma pistol. But you can almost use the plasma rifle like a shotgun. You just literally hold the trigger down for a second and punch and they're dead. And I don't know, I kind of enjoy that.
It kind of, like in Halo 3 and Halo 2 as well. I think in Halo 3 more, it's like with the plasma rifle, it just deletes that overshield. It's ridiculous. But with Halo 1, it was weird because you would just freeze pretty much. You can barely move, and you can just literally just circle around like that, just get behind them and go, right, thank you very much. That's another kill behind me. But I can agree with that to a certain extent.
I just love how you can, you bounce a grenade off the wall, blast them with a plasma rifle for like a second, and the grenade will kill them. Like it's crazy. What are you gonna say, Toby?
Do we have time? I have a question for each of our guests.
Sure. Well, it's you I'm trying to rush this for because you got your.
Yeah, we got 10 minutes. We got like 5 minutes. I want some quick answers. So Kexman, Zeta Halo. That's what we're on.
Yes.
Just super quick summary for someone who has no idea. Why are we excited about this? You have like 60 seconds.
The reason we are excited about the Zeta Halo is because it was one of the original... the Halos were originally built much, much bigger, and then they were reduced out, or most of them were destroyed. They were reduced down in size. This one is an original Halo. This was actually where the precursor, who was kind of like the civilization before the Forerunners was, and the precursor is, or the precursors before the Forerunners are effectively the ones that created the Flood. We know that Zeta Halo had several grave mines on it. We know it was very, very pivotal in the Forerunner Flood War, and it's also potentially where mendicant bias could be. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's kind of it's essentially
the most Halo.
It's effectively it is the central point of the majority of the Halo lore.
I think a lot of us think of Installation 04 as that. Sort of Halo 1 or Halo Ring, but yeah, I guess it's very
that's Halo 1, I think.
Yeah, that's but Halo. Installation 05 was Beta Halo.
But I guess anyone in the sort of extended universe, it's like Zeta Halo is the standout one. Did you have another question?
Yeah, and then everyone for Lethal. So you say you don't know much about the campaign or anything like that. So what is a Cortana?
Can I not answer that?
I want your best
AI.
Okay.
You're so confused. Don't help him.
I'm not going to help him. I'm going to make it.
Oh no, I've already said my answer, so that's literally the best you're going to get.
Okay. Second question: Who was Cortana created from?
I didn't even know it was even created by something. So there you go. That's my answer number 2.
How about what is a Halo ring?
Oh, that's a good one.
I don't know. I told you, I have no idea.
This is great.
No idea.
All right,
I'll tell you what. Actually, I've only completed one campaign, and that was Halo 1. But that was like in 2003, and even then, I wasn't really playing for the plot. I was more just going around, killing everything and all that stuff. So, yeah, it is madness. For after 18 years, I know almost zero about the storyline. Like even if I've only completed one Halo game, it's madness.
Can we do another one of these in about 2 months where we just do nothing but grill Lethal on the Halo campaigns and see just how far he's got?
I'm a campaign noob. I can't.
You got some homework to do, Lethal. All right, we're gonna wrap this one up. But of course, first, I want to thank all of you guys for coming on, and this is your opportunity to promote yourselves. Get everyone to follow you on your own platforms. Kexman, we'll start with you. Where can these wonderful people find you?
So they can find me in 2 places. Number 1, every Friday, 7 p.m. BST on Warcraft Radio, a show called You Think You Do But You Don't. I host with another couple of fine gentlemen. That's always fun. That's always good fun. And you can also find me on my own channel, which is twitch.tv/KexmanWCR, where I play, amongst other things, World of Warcraft, Halo, there's Divinity Original Sin 2. There's a lot of various different things. That's pretty much where you can find me here on this wild world we call the interwebs.
Awesome. Well, there you go. I mean, links to all of your socials are in the chat already, but Lethal, we'll move on. Where can these wonderful people find you?
You can find me at lethal_HT on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, you name it, probably every social media platform you can think of. And on Twitch, I normally stream, not the campaigns, believe it or not. That is definitely something on my, honestly, if I had a to-do list, it would be number one after not knowing like almost every single one of those questions. But yeah, no, you'll find me basically competing or like playing competitively or maybe doing some online tournaments here and there just to... just for the giggles, really. But yeah, you can find me on at lethal_HT, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram.
Okay, and what about the chucklehead next to me? Where can they
Oh,
find you?
you know me. I'm BirdKeeperToby on everything, doing some Pokemon videos. Right after when we air this podcast live on Twitch, I do community raid hours, which I'm going to go do now. We can jump into some Pokemon raids together on twitch.tv/BirdKeeperToby, BirdKeeperToby on everything.
And my name is Dan or Falcone. If you're watching live, please consider dropping a follow if you enjoyed the podcast. I'm live Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, streaming a variety of different games, including, of course, Halo. And this podcast will be on my YouTube channel, which you'll be able to find if you look at Falcone Hosts. You can follow me on Falcone Hosts on any of those social media. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you again next week.